New day, new math lesson. Let's see. We're going to start off with simple interest today. So, simple interest. And before we start, let me just put out the objective for this. The objective for today is to solve problems involving simple interest. All right. And then from there, we're going to do a couple definitions. The definitions are there just so that you'll be able to understand all of the terms that we're going to discuss and use, especially when we reach the point of the formula. Once we discuss all the terms that you need to know, then it's just a matter of simply applying the formula over and over to solve whatever problems that you may have. So the first definition that we're going to talk about is the principal. Let me just write this in yellow. The principal, right, is the original amount of money invested or borrowed. So for example, if you invest $1,000 in a bank account, the principal amount would be $1,000. So let me just write that example here. For example, if you invest $1,000 in a bank account, the principal amount is $1,000. All right, let's go on to another one now. So I'm going to shift the colors in between each definition so that you know where one stops and the other finishes. All right, the next one that we want to look at is the definition for time with respect to your principal and your interest rate, or the period through which you're going to take this loan, or the period through which you're going to make this investment. So the time is the period for which the money is invested or borrowed. And usually it is expressed in years. So for example, if you make an investment for 3 years, then the time period or the time would be 3 years, right? So for example, if you borrow, the investment, I should say not borrow, if you borrow or invest for 3 years, then the time period is 3 years. All right, let's go on to the next one, which is the rate. Switch back to yellow. So the rate is nothing more than the percentage of the principal charged as interest for the time period that you're borrowing it for. So if you have an interest rate of 5% a year, then the rate is going to be 5%. So let me just write that down. So the rate is the percentage of the principal charged as interest per unit, well, for the time period. For example, if the interest rate is 5% per year, then the rate is 5%. The next definition that we have to talk about is the simple interest. Now, the simple interest is the interest calculated on the principal for the time period at a specific rate. So this is where the first formula that you would learn comes in, which is simple interest is equal to principal times rate times time divided by 100. So let me just write that down. So the simple interest is the interest calculated on the principal for a specific time period at a specific rate. So if you want something like, if you want the formula is as follows. So let me just put this in orange. So the simple interest, and I'll call that SI, is equal to the principal times the rate times the time divided by 100. And this part here is really, you can change that. So if you have the rate as a percentage, you can literally write this over. you can literally write this over as, let me just change the color. You can write this over as something like this. Principal times the rate as a decimal, the rate as a decimal times the time, right? And you'll get the same answer, right? But this is the formula that they would tend to expect you to write most of the time when you're calculating simple interest. All right, so let's look at an example for simple interest. So for example, if you invest $1,000 at an interest rate of 5% for 3 years, the simple interest is, and we're just going to use the formula to calculate it now. So we're going to say here that the simple interest is equal to, well, you know what? Let me extract these pieces of information from the question itself first. So we're going to see that this here is the investment to the principal. This here is the rate, which is 5%, and this here is the amount of time in years, which is 3. So I'm going to say that the simple interest is going to be equal to the principal times the rate times the time divided by 100, and the principal is 1,000 times the rate, which is 5%, times the time, which is 3 years, all divided by 100. 2 zeros cancel here. 5 by 10 is 50, and 50 by 3 is 150. So our interest would be $150. 150. All right. And then the final thing is the amount. All right. Now, the amount is nothing more. Let me just put the note here as well. Right. The amount is nothing more than the total after adding the interest and the principal. Right. So the amount is the total after adding the interest to the principal, right? And that would be equal to, well, the amount would be equal to the principal by the simple, sorry, plus the simple interest. And you know, now that I reach all of this, you know what I should do? I should probably highlight these and put here a label for each one of them. So that's the amount, and then we have the simple interest, and then we have the rate, then we have the time, then we have the principal. Right? So I'm going to just write a symbol for each of these. So we have principal with a P, time with a capital T, rate with a capital R, simple interest with a SI, and then we have the amount, which is A. And let's look at now an example, right? So in the above example, just put this back in white. So in the above example, the amount in the above example, the amount A is going to be found by simply taking the values and adding them together. So A, just write this in a different color. A would be equal to the $1,000 plus the $150, which gives me $1,150. Okay, so that is it for that. Now let's look at a couple problems so that you can get some practice when it comes to solving simple interest. And it's not going to be long, and I don't even think I need to give you extra problems at the end of it. You'll basically obtain the answer by the time I'm done. In fact, you could stop right after I present the problem, and you can try and solve it before you look at the solution. So we can say problem 1. We can say you invest $500 at an interest rate of 4% per year for 5 years, and you're required to calculate the simple interest and the total amount. All right, so the solution will be as follows. Solution: we have the principal, which is $500. We have the rate, which is 4%. We have the time, which is 5 years. And then we're required to find the simple interest, which is just simply that principal by rate by time, which is the $500 times the 4% times the 5 years, all divided by 100. This into this 1, this into this 5, 5 by 5, 25, 25 into 4 is 100. So this is $100. All right, and then therefore the total amount would be equivalent to, well, A would be equivalent to your principal, which is your $500, adding to your interest, which is $100, and you will get a total of $600. So problem 2, and we're saying a loan of $1,200 is taken at an interest rate of 6% per year for 2 years. We're to calculate the simple interest and the total amount to be repaid. And let's do the solution for that. So start off by first identifying every piece of information. We know this is the principal, we know this is the rate, and we know this is the time. So let's do that calculation now. So solution is the principal. Oopsie, no E at the end of that. Which is 1,200. The rate, which is 6%. The time, which is 2 years. It's not your video, it's my computer. It's kind of lagging a little bit right now, so you might see the screen sticking a little bit. Right? Simple interest is equal to 1,200 times the 6% times the 2 years, and then divided by 100. This into this will give me 12, and then I have 12 by 6, which is 72, and then 72 by 2, which is 144. All right, so it's $144 in interest. The total amount would be equal to A of 1,200 plus 144, and that will be a total of 1,344. Let me just write that better. All right, so that's it. And if you have any questions, you can message me or leave it in the comments, and I will get back to you as soon as I see them.